And for the very latest on this, we're now being joined by Scott Lucas, Professor of International Politics, Clinton Institute, University College Dublin. He joins us from the UK. Scott Lucas, thanks very much for talking to us this afternoon. And well, this sort of provocation will have, many believe consequences, not just from the Hamas possibly, but also, I would imagine, from the Arab world, as it does disturb a finely held status quo.
Yes. This is the latest provocation, but we have had a series of provocations over the Al-Aqsa mosque and the area which called by Israelis Temple Mount. I can go remember in 2000 when the hard-right Israeli politician Ariel Sharon, later the prime minister, did a provocative walk on Temple Mount, effectively claiming that area, including Al-Aqsa Mosque, for Israelis, an incident which unsettled the region for months and indeed for years. Now, the context for this, however, is Israel's ongoing military operations in Gaza, which are now approaching a one-year anniversary. So you have the combination of these far-right Israeli groups trying to claim all of Temple Mount, trying to claim all of Jerusalem, despite the fact it's an international city, and adding the threat of the destruction of the mosque at the same time, as we've had more than 41,000 people killed in Gaza in the past year, and at the same time as we've had killings and violence in the Israeli-occupied West Bank.
Yeah, so it doesn't just now, it's not just in Gaza, but it's also spilling over to many other parts, as you said, the West Bank and also, of course, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And just to add to what you said, just 3 weeks ago, the far-right Israeli minister Itamar Ben-Gvir had sparked outrage by saying that he would build a synagogue there. How much of these latest actions can be attributed to comments within the Netanyahu cabinet and therefore the consequences of it?
We can't say that this group, which calls itself Temple Mount, that they are directed by the hard-right ministers, like Mr. Ben-Gvir, or like the finance minister, Mr. Smotrich. But what we can say, of course, is that these groups feed off of the rhetoric of certain Israeli politicians, and in this case, politicians who are inside the Israeli cabinet. So they sort of reinforce each other. Now, that being said, the Israeli cabinet is a range of views. Not all ministers will support. In fact, I don't think most of them support Mr. Ben-Gvir about the idea of building a synagogue in this area, which is claimed by 3 different religions as one of their key sites. But at the same time, while Mr. Ben-Gvir and Mr. Smotrich are inside the cabinet, they know they wield influence, and they know that their statements can sort of encourage these groups to make these claims.
Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, it also, of course, goes to enable Hamas and its actions and give it legitimacy, saying, look what's happening.
I think that's a very important point, because look what has happened in the past 24 hours. We had the stabbing of a policeman at the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem yesterday. He was lightly wounded. The assailant was killed by the Israeli police. Now, there is no evidence that that assault was a direct response to this extremist propaganda about Al-Aqsa Mosque. But what Hamas immediately did say is, we praise this man who carried out this attack. This is all about defending the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And so Hamas can use this far-right group, this Israeli group, to claim legitimacy for its own, of course, defense against Israel in Gaza, but also claim legitimacy for its own escalation or possible escalation of confrontation in the old city.
Mm-hmm. Scott Lucas, thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.